This is the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral.com.
Welcome in. This is the Joe Gaither Show on Tuesday. And yes, we are in Coleman Coliseum trying something a little bit different today. We welcome and thank you guys for joining us on the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral, right here on BamaCentral YouTube channel, or right there on BamaCentral.com, or you're watching us at Joe Gaither 6 on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. We appreciate whatever platform you're looking at us on. I'm here with my friend Will Miller. We appreciate you guys tuning in and joining us. We have just gotten off the Alabama practice field. And we wanted to bring you an episode in between the time of practice and availability. I've been struggling. You guys have noticed it. I've been struggling with figuring out what my right timing is for when to drop a podcast as fall camp has been going on. Morning practices, middle of the afternoon availability. I haven't done a very good job. So we were trying something a little bit different today. We want to talk about Alabama scrimmage on Saturday. We want to talk about what we saw at practice today. And we want to talk about really where Alabama stands with, 13 days? 13 days until Alabama kicks off against Western Kentucky. Make sure you follow my friend Will Miller at Real WB Miller, as he's going to help me along through this episode, and we appreciate him doing that. But before we do, and before we tell you about this, talk about Alabama football, we want to tell you about our friends Derek Daniel and State Farm. We appreciate Derek Daniel for sponsoring the program. Always does such a great job for us. You can call him today at 205-758-3391 for all of your home, life, and auto insurance needs. Look, I don't like insurance. You don't like insurance. So why don't you let Derek Daniel and his team handle it? Call him today at 205-758-3391. They can run you a quick auto quote. They can give you a quote on your home, or if you're looking to make some business decisions for your family, life insurance as well. So we appreciate Derek Daniel for sponsoring the program. Check him out online at agentderekdaniel.com or call him today at 205-758-3391. Will Miller, how you doing, man?
I'm good, Joe. It's crazy to think that the season's such a short time away, now under 2 weeks until the Kalen DeBoer era officially kicks off, and I think that anticipation just continues to build. I've said that a lot, but it's palpable this time of year. The students back on campus, everybody getting settled back in here in Tuscaloosa from that standpoint as well, and just the time of year that everybody looks forward to. I really think it's in the air at this point, and people are really excited.
Absolutely. You had bid day on Sunday, so that's one of the big things around Alabama culture, and really school starts tomorrow. Oh my gosh, for all you students, get ready for classes tomorrow. And if you're a parent, your student will be going to class tomorrow. Hopefully, if they are up on time, classes start tomorrow at UA. What do you want to talk about, Will? You want to talk about the scrimmage on Saturday?
Well, I think the scrimmage on Saturday, like anything, pluses and minuses. Jaden Roberts getting hurt, that stings. And that's one of the biggest takeaways. Obviously, Kalen DeBoer did say he's going to play week 1. But he did have surgery. And you never want to see that at any point in the year, but especially with, less than 14 days to go until the season starts. And you've got a guy that, took so many great strides last year, improved so much, and was expected to be one of the anchors on the offensive line. Just to have that progress halted this close to kickoff is kind of tough to see. But with that, doesn't seem like it'll be a long time on the shelf. Seems like it's kind of best case scenario in that regard. But nevertheless, not something you really love seeing.
Why don't we start right there? Jaden Roberts gets hurt on Saturday at the Alabama scrimmage, and it's reported that it's a hand injury, and his mother has gone out to Twitter and said that he has had surgery. And yes, Kalen DeBoer said that he's expecting to have him week 1. But conceptually, what it means, Kalen DeBoer on Saturday said, "This was the most physical scrimmage I have had in my tenure at Alabama." Now, look, what's the tenure? A-Day, a fall scrimmage, and now this is the 3rd scrimmage, right, that he has had, maybe 4th if they had one before A-Day. So not many to compare it to. But there were reports, there were lots of, it was a close scrimmage, so reports were a little bit scarce. But there were reports that maybe a couple of scuffles, maybe a couple players got sent to the locker room early because of those scuffles. And so the physicality was at an all-time high for the Kalen DeBoer era. We'll say that. It may not be all-time high for Alabama, but for the Kalen DeBoer regime, Saturday's scrimmage was the most physical scrimmage that we've heard about. You look on Sunday and you see you see a couple different guys. Wearing some walking wounded. Jeremiah Alexander comes to mind. He had a sling in those pictures on Sunday, and hopefully he will be A-okay. We'll hopefully get an update on him. But just the concept of a very physical scrimmage 2 weeks before the season opener, to me, Will Miller, it feels like the team is just itching to get out there, itching to prove that last year, was a building block. Last year was a start of something special. Obviously, you didn't win the national championship, but you won an SEC title, and you had a great year, really, by objective standpoints. You had a great year. But it feels like the players, and it feels like the energy in the program is just a sense of hunger to prove that, okay, Nick Saban's gone, but we're not going anywhere. We're still going to have, you've heard it, the standard is the standard. The A doesn't change. You've heard it. So I'm wrapping all this up to you. I'm going to throw it at you. A very physical scrimmage. Are you getting the same sense that I am, that this team is just kind of chomping at the bit to get out there and play somebody?
I think that piece is there, absolutely. The element of having to prove yourself with Nick Saban being gone, I think that's heavy on these guys' minds, especially the ones that were there before, which is still a lot of guys, obviously. It was just last year, and it seems like ages ago, but very, very relatively short time frame, right? But I think that the main part is what you said at the end. I think these guys are just ready to play. You had spring practice. You had obviously A-Day. Again, that seems like a long time in the rear view as well. But now you're having –
seems like a lifetime ago.
Right, exactly. You're having summer scrimmages right now, or at this point in camp. I mean, but I think also you've been out there so much. You want to see another jersey. For those in the non-contact, you want to take those off. You want to get into the swing of things. You want to take the Guardian caps off and really get down to business. I think that's that hunger is what's driving these guys. And I guess maybe that doesn't always manifest itself in the most positive ways, but I think that's where these guys' minds are, and that's where their focus is.
I don't draw too many negatives over a practice fight. That happens in fall camp. It happens pretty much in every I mean, I don't want to be high school Harry here, but every high school camp that I ever participated in had infighting in the team. By the end of fall camp, you're tired of seeing the same person across from you. And look, these guys are competing for where they are going to fall in the depth chart standings next week, or really already. So it's a chance. Look, everybody's future is on the line. And so the intensity is really high. I don't think that there's anything negative about practice fights or about scrimmage fights. I think that that's just what happens in football. Obviously, my mind immediately goes to, who was it in the NFL last week? It was Lions and Giants.
Yep.
Lions and Giants had practice fights like 3 different times in 2 different days. So, and our boy Terrion Arnold was a part of that. He and Malik Neighbor getting into a couple of scuffles during preseason camp. So it's part of camp. It's a part of camp. But really, going back to Saturday scrimmage, you hear the physicality. You hear from people that saw the scrimmage talking about how ready and amped up the defense is. And I want to throw this at you because all summer I have been telling our audience here at BamaCentral.com and everybody watching us on the BamaCentral YouTube channel, we appreciate you. We've been telling our audience that this Alabama offense is going to be electric, is going to take a huge step forward, is going to be really, really dangerous. But you hear reports on Saturday that the Alabama defense was fairly stingy, that they were that they were a little salty. And so I think that a lot of people have seen Kane Womack's defense. Obviously, the numbers, they finished, 16th in total defense last season at South Alabama. But there were a couple instances where the defense might have had a couple lapses, per se. And so those lapses created concerns through the offseason in the Alabama fan base, which everything is mystery at this point. We don't know how it's going to work out. I think it's going to work out pretty well. But those lapses, again, allow anxiety to creep through the Alabama fan base. And so to circle back to Alabama scrimmage on Saturday, if the defense was amped up and fired up and made things very, very tough, are we at the point where we're about ready to settle we're concerned about Alabama's defense before the season starts?
I don't know. I think that Kane Womack is just such a high energy guy, and you see that, and we saw that earlier. But
we'll talk about practice in a minute. Yeah, we'll tell you about a little Kane Womack.
In general,
Funny.
this is a guy that comes in every day, and that switch is turned all the way up. I think it's great for these players. When you hit the ground running with a new system, a new coaching staff, and new teammates at a lot of key positions. Keon Sabb obviously comes to mind. One of the first guys to come to mind. But I think you need that. And I think this is, and you've been able to see a lot of that from him as a former sitting head coach. And, on the other side of the ball, Nick Sheridan, maybe hasn't been, highlighted. His demeanor hasn't been highlighted as much as he hasn't been in that role, and Kane has. But I think that that's the jolt this defense needs. And again, I talked earlier about how maybe things manifest themselves, how the guy's desire to get back out on the field against somebody else manifests itself. But I think when you have a high energy guy coming in, and that's going to manifest itself in certain ways. I think you're going to feed off of that energy and maybe expel it when you're playing in the scrimmage, or whether, maybe you have a little practice in fighting, maybe you have a little something else going on. But I think that's what it's the product of. I think you have a coaching staff that's energized and a coordinator that's really, really turned up to the max, and I think it's all rooted in he just wants to bring the absolute most out of those guys.
Well, I'm really excited about the season, and I'm kind of at the point where I'm just ready for it to get started. Let's talk about the injury status, and then we'll talk about what we saw from practice today, and then we'll kind of look forward to what the rest of the next week and a half will be. Injury status. On Saturday's scrimmage, we heard that Jam Miller was held out of the scrimmage. Again, we saw today Jam Miller in a black uniform. We heard from Kalen DeBoer, obviously, about Jaden Roberts. About Jaden Roberts with a hand injury. Basically, Kalen DeBoer on Saturday says no major injuries, nothing significant. Everybody that he expects to be contributing to Alabama this year healthy for week number 1. And so I ask you specifically about Jaden Roberts, because today and on Saturday, when Jaden Roberts left the field, you had Geno Vandermark, the transfer from Michigan State, move into that right guard position. What's your confidence level in Geno Vandermark? And last night I was asked a question that I'm going to ask you as a part B.
Okay.
The fella tossed me and said, if Jalen Milroe gets hurt, okay, we'll take that off the board. But outside of Jalen Milroe, who's the most important player on this offense that needs to stay healthy? So Geno Vandermark first, and then who's the most important player to stay healthy outside of Jalen Milroe?
For the first part of your question, I think a guy with Power 5 experience isn't going to have tons of question marks until you've actually seen him play, which we haven't yet, obviously. You talk about being itching for the season to start. I think we all are. We've said that ad nauseum here this episode. I think that's where you stand with Geno, though. There's nothing about him that makes me not confident or his background that makes me not confident that he can step in and play. Like I mentioned, you want Jaden Roberts to be a part of this for so many reasons. But nevertheless, I think that the next man up in this case, the prospects are pretty strong. As to the second part of your question, I lean towards Justice Haynes. You could think of so many guys. Jaden Roberts would be up there on my list. But I think that, and it's could be a running back by committee approach this year, obviously, with, Jam Miller, with a couple of these other guys, with, Richard Young, like that. But Justice Haynes is a guy that a lot of people are really high on coming into this year, and get some extended playing time for, the first time from a regular season standpoint. He's been a really good A-Day player for 2 years in a row now. Absolutely sensational last year. But I think that what Alabama has been missing is, one of those tailbacks that is going to be potentially a bell cow back.
Mm-hmm.
That's what, foundationally, that's what this program has had. And maybe that's not the system now. But he can serve in that role. Obviously, Jam Miller can too. I've always envisioned Jam Miller as more of a versatile pass catcher, maybe. But I think Justice Haynes is probably my answer for that. I don't know. What did you think?
Why, first, when I was asked the question, my first thought was the 3 interior offensive linemen, Parker Brailsford, Tyler Booker, and Jaden Roberts. But with Vandermark being there with Power 5 experience and being capable of playing all 3 positions, I felt like that was maybe too. I felt like that wasn't the right answer. Now, if one of those 3 guys is hurt and you're playing Geno Vandermark, Then yes, the three interior positions become the most important because who steps into the center role if Vandermark's playing right guard and Brailsford gets hurt? Well, you bump Vandermark over to play center, and you got to find a new right guard, and the experience drop off. It's pretty scary after that. You're looking at Olas Lennon, you're looking at maybe Miles McVay, you're looking at some of these guys that have been in the system a year or two, but you might even look at Casey Poe. You might look at Joe Ionata or Will Sanders. The experience drop off, if you have to get past Gino Vandermark, is very concerning to me. Is very concerning to me. Now, the answer that I finally settled on was tackle, because all right. We'll address Justice Haynes first. Justice, very special talent, and of course, you want to keep all the talent that you can healthy. But you look at the other running backs, and you got Jan Miller, who's very versatile, as you pointed out, and Richard Young, I think, is right there to break out. I think he is right there to break out. And then obviously you got Daniel Hill and Kevin Riley, the two freshmen as well. So you've got a lot of talent in the running back room if you lose one of those guys. You don't want to lose anybody. But the same thing can be said for the wide receiver room. You lose one of those guys, you've got a lot of talent. They can step right up.
You lose Jeremy Bernard, it's an issue.
It might be. I think Jeremy Bernard is going to be very special. It might be. You lose Jeremy Bernard, who plays X? You're going to put a lot of pressure on Kobe Prentice. I don't know if he's going to be capable of doing that.
What makes you say that?
Getting off the line, physicality, getting off the line of scrimmage. I think that, look, you see I love the wide receiver room, but I love Jeremy Bernard the most. So I went with the tackles. I went with the left and right tackle as probably your biggest issue. You got to keep these guys healthy, because if you lose Caden Proctor at left tackle, okay, well, you move in Elijah Pritchett, he's stepping right in there. It's not so much as one of these starters that you got to keep healthy. It's that every one of these groups, even Jalen Milroe, you've got Ty Simpson sitting right behind him, and I think the Alabama fan base, and I am confident in Ty Simpson's abilities. It's really that it's not the second player, but it's after the twos is where it gets really concerning, because each tackle, left and right tackle, you've got to back up in Elijah Pritchett. But if you are now Caden Proctor or Wilkin Formby goes down and you're playing Elijah Pritchett, who's your next tackle up? That becomes a huge issue, because you lose Wilkin Formby at right tackle and you're playing Elijah Pritchett right there. Obviously, if Proctor goes down, you flip Pritchett across the other side, and you got to find a backup right tackle, and Miles McVay probably. There's just depth in the third level. I think that you have one guy backing all these guys up. Obviously, Ty Simpson's backing up Jalen Milroe. The running back room, you got a lot of guys. But your interior linemen, you got one backup in Gino Vandermark. Your tackles, you got one backup in Elijah Pritchett. And so it becomes more of an issue up front for me. And so that was my answer to the tackles.
Well, I think that obviously being three deep in the SEC is important, but you're also talking about scenarios that are very break glass in case of emergency.
Certainly.
Very less than ideal if you're a coach having to make these decisions. And I think that, you cross that bridge when you come to it.
Certainly.
I guess, in a manner of speaking.
Yeah.
Now, with that being said, I think there's a lot of talent here, maybe more than you're giving some of these guys credit for.
Talent, yes. Experience, no.
And that's important. You can't imitate that. You really can't. That's what this is about. That's why you do these scrimmages in the summer and the spring. That's why you have these type of practices and the drills at the intensity that you do. Certainly, that's absolutely the case. But nevertheless, I think that these guys could hold their own if they had to, but you don't want them to have to. And that's where that stands in my book. I think this offensive line could surprise some people. You have Parker Brailsford, who's obviously getting all the love at the center position. A lot of philosophical debates as to whether that could be just a result of maybe some shortcomings at the center position in the past. And he's, he could be argued as the best interior lineman in the country anyway, I feel. But that's another discussion. but like any scenario where he's not on the field, the
Becomes a
lights
problem.
are flashing red.
Yes.
The sirens are going off.
Becomes a big
and
problem.
Nobody's happy regardless of who is going to stand in.
Yeah.
And that's just a situation that you cross the bridge when you come to it.
All right, so before we talk about practice, I want to tell you about our friends at Druid City Music Hall. Look, they were a great sponsor with me on the Joe Gaither Show through last school year, and a little bit of a hiatus during the summer because of the kids being gone. But Druid City Music Hall is coming back in a huge way for the fall semester. They're having a kaleidoscope concert series. Like you saw me wearing the Druid City Music Hall hat earlier. I basically wear it everywhere at this point. It is the premier destination for live music on the Strip. You can go into any of the other bars on the Strip and you'll hear Billy Garage Band, of course, and a college band this, and there's some talent for sure. But if you want a live concert experience, a real concert experience on the Strip, or even anywhere in Tuscaloosa outside of really the amphitheater, it's Druid City Music Hall. You've got a great stage, a great pit. You've got 2 big bars in the back, lots of standing room to enjoy, lots of dancing room to enjoy the music. And they're coming back with 20, 21 different concerts through the fall semester. They start on Wednesday with Charlie on a Friday is playing on a Wednesday. So at Druid City Music Hall, they're sold out already. They're sold out on Thursday for Tucker Wetmore. So look, they're bringing big acts in. But on Thursday Friday they have Knox, and next week is going to be another Thursday Friday set. So look, every single weekend they're bringing in live acts, and Druid City Music Hall is the place to hear the artists before they go big. These acts will be big. You got all 20 of them. 5 to 6 of them will be big at some point. Dave Matthews played over there. You've had a lot of big acts play at Druid City Music Hall before they got big. So that's the place to go. Make sure you check them out at druidcitymusichall.com. You can find their entire lineup at druidcitymusichall.com/shows. You can buy tickets right there. Great place to view live music on the Strip. Great place to hear young and up-and-coming artists. And we appreciate them being a part of the Joe Gaither Show right here on BamaCentral. All right, let's talk about practice. Today's practice, we were out there, and Will, this was your first practice. So I'm just going to open it up to you as you've been away for the summer, but you're back here ready for fall. What did you notice in practice today?
Well, I noticed, I mostly watched the tight ends and the quarterbacks. I had the specialists out there, had some of the linemen out there. I thought that, and the quarterbacks in these practices are in a very controlled environment, but I thought they looked sharp. I thought that the throws were really good. Austin Mack in particular, he stood out to me. He was really on point. He's got this, as a baseball fan, you love the, kind of sidearm delivery and the way the ball leaves his hand and stays on the track. It does. You wouldn't think that could happen, which, that's a kid that's got a lot of just raw talent. I thought they were really sharp. Tight ends look good. They did some blocking drills. They did a little bit of short passes. From what I saw, it was good. We weren't out there too long. We didn't get to, roam around too much. But, and they're probably not, going to look bad at this point in the summer. And, if you're the coaching staff, you'd certainly hope that they wouldn't. And they didn't. But from those position groups, from what I did see, I thought they looked game ready.
You can see the practice film, the practice footage that we were able to see at BamaCentral's YouTube channel right now. Our practice experience, as Will said, was pretty short, but we're thankful to be out there and see what we can see. We got to Mount Moore Athletic Facility. We get into the indoor room, and what ended up happening was they run the defense inside, and they send us outside. So we got to see tight ends, quarterbacks, offensive line, special team, wide receivers, running backs. Just a quick short story. Will, let's circle back to the very beginning. You talk about Kane Womack and his fiery nature. We were at the door at the indoor facility, waiting to go out the door to the outside, and the defense is coming in. No problem. We were instructed to stand back and just go straight out when we were allowed to. Fine, clear instructions, no problem. The defense runs in, and it's not 5 seconds. Earmuffs, please. For anyone who, I don't really curse that often on this show, but earmuffs if you if that will bother you. It was not 5 seconds where we are still. There's defensive linemen, there's linebackers, there's safeties in corners running
These are
inside.
big dudes. You can't miss them.
And they're gonna run me over. They're gonna hurt me. They're gonna hurt Will Miller. These guys are big dudes. I'm not squeezing past them. They're running in, and Womack is already yelling at the media. Get the bleep off the field. You're gonna get run the fuck over. You're in the way. And look, we were out of the way in 10 seconds or so. But it just, and this is not a criticism of Kane Womack at all, because I didn't care one bit. I laughed at it, and I hope you laugh at it as well. It just shows to me that intensity is real. It was not 5 seconds. I swear. They are running in. They're still running in. He was ahead of them, and he's at his drill ready to get set up. We should have been running reps. Get the bleep out of the way. You're going to get run the bleep over. You're in the bleeping way. And then we obviously get out of there. It's just a small picture of his intensity.
I'm telling you, dude, he is dialed in all the way up to the max for all the times that I have seen him. And, this is a guy that has fun with the media. One of the first times we spoke to him, he threw one of the most underrated jokes I've ever heard in a football context out there. He's like, it's a little fewer people than a South Alabama press conference, but we'll make do. That was pretty funny. And, I think that he's a guy that, he's going to have a good time, but he's also intense. And this means something to him. The opportunity to come be in Tuscaloosa. He left a post as a head coach at the FBS level to be in this position as the defensive coordinator. I don't think that can be overstated. It was talked about so much, and it will continue to be talked about as the season goes on and as we hear from him more, because, coordinators, it's a new world. And I'm sure that will be touched on time and time again, but I'm going to touch on it because, it's not inconceivable to me that you would want to be a part of something like this. But for a guy that had success, in the state, to leave that post and come here, I think it says a lot about what this, the program that's being, not built per se. Obviously, the foundation is there. Intro with that basically, but this new spin on it, but I think, again, this is one of the ways that you're going to see that come to life.
All right, so when we were at practice, Jaden Roberts was not there. We didn't see Jaden Roberts, and obviously this is in our practice report at BamaCentral.com. Our friend Katie Wyndham wrote it up for us, and we appreciate that. We didn't see Jaden Roberts. Obviously had surgery over the weekend on a hand. I didn't see Caleb Odom. Hopefully he's A-okay. We will look to get some updates on Caleb Odom here shortly. We did not see Jeremiah Alexander either. We hope to get updates on him very shortly. We will hear from the defensive coaches, Kane Womack, and some defensive players here after this video. The timing of these videos might pop up in a funny way, but we will be going over there to hear from them in just a moment. So we'll look for an update on Jeremiah Alexander. We'll look for an update we probably won't get one on Jaden Roberts or on Caleb Odom because we're talking to defensive coaches. With that being said, what we were able to see, that's where we're going. Jaden Roberts injured his hand. We saw Gino Vandermark playing right guard today. We saw Will Conformby playing right tackle. And so this is another time where Will Conformby is still playing right tackle. And that seems to be the biggest question mark left as there's 13 days left. Is Elijah Pritchett going to take over at right tackle, or will Conformby hold on to that role? And we want to congratulate Will Conformby and his family. Taco Casa celebrating their 50th year of being open this week, so we congratulate them. But what do you think about what's going to happen at right tackle? When we heard from Chris Kapilovich last week, and I addressed it on the show last week just a little bit, we'll get your take on it. Kapilovich essentially said it without saying it, that Will Conformby is very sound in his assignment, and Will Conformby knows what is required of him, what the play calls are, that maybe is not as physically gifted as Elijah Pritchett is. And he talked about Elijah Pritchett being very physically gifted, but maybe not as sharp on the intangibles, not as sharp as not consistent with the effort, and maybe not as sharp as far as the scheme goes. So I'll turn it to you. What do you think happens with Alabama's right tackle position?
I think it's an interesting discussion as a whole, because you look at Will Conformby, and he wasn't in this conversation last year as a freshman.
No.
Talk about a whole new world. This is kind of a whole new world for him. And he, obviously a really good high school football player. You and I know that. Whereas there was the whole Elijah Pritchett and Caden Proctor dynamic last year. Elijah Pritchett is not in new territory here with there being a positional battle, and this battle is probably one of the most prominent position battle on this team this year.
Yeah.
and if they're still jockeying back and forth with 11 days until the season starts, I have to wonder if we don't just see an oar on the depth chart coming out next week, and maybe those guys switch out reps. The first couple of games of the year have a definitive step, and whichever one has a definitive step forward. Once the lights turn on, and then that's the guy.
Well, that's what Kalen DeBoer said on Saturday, that they would wait until live reps to they would need to see live reps before they settled on things. But it's been pretty look, the media viewing period is a couple of periods. It's 10, 15 minutes tops. So anything can be happening before we're out there and after we're out there. But while
now.
Yeah, right, exactly. But while we've been out there, it's been pretty consistent over the last couple of times. Will Conformity's playing right tackle. And so we'll see if he's able to hold off Elijah Pritchett, and they can celebrate with a bunch of tacos from Taco Casa. I know that they're doing a bunch of specials. If he ends up, they need to do some sort of special, where if he ends up all SEC, or he ends up all American, or he ends up with any sort of award for the next couple of years, where they they tie it into some sort of a menu special. What do you think?
I would agree with that. Now, there is a catch for me.
Please.
Because I live near a Taco Casa here in Tuscaloosa. And so, is that ideal for traffic? No. Would I personally be opposed to significantly more traffic near where I live? Yes. However, sometimes that stuff happens. And if this team does well, there's going to be traffic anyway. So I think it's the nature of the beast. You just got to embrace it.
So we'll see what happens at Alabama's right tackle position. We didn't really get to see anything on defense today. They ushered us out ASAP, as we kind of alluded to. And then the same sort of thing. When the defense ran out of the indoor facility, we were ushered out of the facility. That was the end of our time. And everybody phones down, go on, get up, which is okay. That's the way it goes. But all that to say is we didn't see any defense today. We just saw the guys running in the building and out of the building. And so we will.
And they look good doing it.
Oh, great! They look better than you or I would running in or out of a building. So let's.
The public doesn't pay to watch us run in and out of the building.
Let's wrap this bad boy up, because we do need to go over back over to the facility and hear from Kane Womack, and we'll probably hear from a defensive coach or two and a defensive star or two. But let's clean up a little bit of trash from the weekend, because I didn't do an episode yesterday because I just not that good at my job. Sorry. Freshman All-American, a couple publications have put out all freshman team. You had Ryan Williams and Xavier Brown named freshman All-American by On3 Sports and ESPN. Two publications naming two freshmen All-American. And we've talked about Xavier Brown a good bit. I think that Xavier Brown will overtake Deshaun Jones as the season progresses. Maybe not the first week, maybe not the fourth week, but by the end of the year, when you're playing Auburn in the Iron Bowl, I think that Xavier Brown's going to be one of your cornerbacks. Let's talk about Ryan Williams, and you can touch on Xavier if you like. Lots of hype about Ryan Williams. Reportedly, in 2 scrimmages, he has over 100 receiving yards. It's hard to know what to take from these scrimmages because we're not seeing it. What's the circumstance? What's the defense trying to do? Who's Ryan Williams going up against? Who is he catching a pass from? Everything is an incomplete picture. So it's hard for me to take big takeaways from an incomplete picture. What do you think about Ryan Williams? What's his ceiling? We hit on Jeremy Bernard just a couple minutes ago and his importance to the offense. Is Ryan Williams, am I underselling how much Ryan Williams, because I've basically been telling us through the summer that pump the brakes. He's just a freshman. You're going to see more Jeremy Bernard. You're going to see more Kobe Prentice, Emmanuel Henderson, Cole Adams. Those guys are going to get more run. Now, I do think that Ryan Williams will be involved in the offense. But am I underselling how much he'll be involved?
It's possible. And I think part of that is just where we are at Alabama, under the previous administration, so to speak. Freshmen didn't really feature as much until the later years. So you just, weren't seeing a lot of that. I mean, TJ Yeldon, as good as he was, had to wait, to be his turn at the feature back, for example. And I don't know. I mean, like you said, and I think everybody's going to be guarded around Ryan Williams. As much hype around a freshman as I can ever remember. And, maybe I just aged myself because, I was young when Julio came here. I was not as young when Amari came, and he was such a good freshman. Calvin Ridley, such a good player as a freshman. But I don't know. That's a player that he was as elite as it gets at the high school level, and that has been well documented. But he at the same time, he's a guy that I'm thinking same deal as with the tackles, and same deal, with where things are going to shake out on, the offensive line. I mean, live reps, game action. How much is he going to get? Right? What situations? What kind of leverage? Where will he be targeted? In his role. These are questions that are part of this incomplete picture that you described that we don't know yet. I think that in order to be more informed, that's where we have to get.
All right, I have 3 more topics to talk about as we close this bad boy out. But before we talk about them, I want to tell you about our friends at Purple Turtle Roofing. They're the most reliable residential roof replacement company in Alabama and Mississippi. Purple Turtle Roofing, whether it's addressing leaks, storm damage, or general wear and tear, they're going to be there to deliver exceptional roof repair for your property. Purple Turtle Roofing is the leading expert in local residential roofing solutions, specializing in providing unparalleled service and quality craftsmanship for all your roof replacement needs. Dustin Foley and his team will get out there and let you know what you need with your roof. Call them at 877-PT-ROOF-5 for your free roof inspection. That's 877-787-6635 for your free roof inspection. Look, there was tons and tons and tons of storms across the Southeast over the weekend, particularly here in Alabama. If you were affected by those storms, Purple Turtle Roofing would love to come and make sure that your roof is ready for the next storm. Look, that's the way the South goes. There will always be a next storm. And so Purple Turtle Roofing will come out and let you know your status of your roof, inspect it, let's see if there's any damage. You don't want to be having any water damage. And the easiest way to kind of get ahead of water damage is to make sure that your roof is up to snuff, is in great shape. Purple Turtle Roofing will do that. So call Dustin Foley today at 877-787-6635 or visit them online at roofturtle.com. I got 3 more topics for you, each of them a name, and we'll just kind of hit on their big news. You want to talk about the flip first or a big contract?
Contract.
Courtney Morgan. Oh my gosh, huge deal for Alabama. And this is I cannot overstate how important it is that Courtney Morgan is signing, or the Board of Trustees is meeting today to approve several different contracts. A lot of athletic contracts getting approved today. But Courtney Morgan is getting a pretty fat little raise today. And
it's pretty deserved.
Yes, it's pretty deserved. Not only does Courtney Morgan come in flying across the country with Kalen DeBoer, but
Can confirm. I was there. It was cold.
Yeah, he keeps the roster together.
I think Buddy was in short sleeves.
Obviously, there were some guys that you lost that you might have wanted to keep, but largely kept the roster together and then went to the transfer portal and said, oh, we'll take one of you and one of you, a little Keon Sabb, a little Jeremy Bernard, Parker Brailsford was good. We'll take Cam Howard, King Mack. So he manipulated and worked through the transfer portal. And goodness gracious, that's not even the biggest part to me. The class of 2025. Oh, the class of 2025 with Keelan Russell and really just all kinds of great players with Dijon Lee. I'm excited about it. What do you make about Courtney Morgan signing a new contract, staying at the capstone? Look, I know it for a fact that other major universities, blue blood brands in college football, we're trying to get Courtney Morgan to leave Tuscaloosa and come help them out. So what do you think about Courtney Morgan signing a contract or getting his contract approved to have an extension?
Well, first off, I don't blame USC. The way Courtney Morgan has built this roster, I used the phrase "hit the ground running" earlier, and if that's not what he did, then I don't know what hitting the ground running is. He has been such an invaluable piece, not just to this program, but to Kalen DeBoer. And he's as indispensable as it gets. I feel that in terms of athletics administration, they not to say the quiet part out loud, but I feel like there was definitely we can't let this guy leave. What do we got to do? And again, totally reasonable. If I were a stakeholder, I would definitely be in that same camp.
With the way NIL, the transfer portal, the recruiting has gone, the amount of stress it takes off a head coach to have somebody say, look, you are a roster management guy. You're in charge of this. This is what we're looking for with our players, and you just got to leverage connections and see what you can do.
He's doing a good job of it.
Check Katie's message on your phone as I set up our last topic. I don't want to leave her out in the dry here. Our last two topics are both in the recruiting world, and they're going to be quick. A.K. Deer. Okay, perfect. A.K. Deer is committing today. A.K. Deer, number 2 running back in the country, is committing today out of Mississippi. So let's combine two topics in one. A.K. Deer committing today, debating on Ole Miss, Mississippi State, and Alabama. Was committed to Ole Miss, decommitted to Ole Miss, flirting heavily with Alabama. Looks like Alabama's going to be pulling a 5-star in today. We'll combine your thoughts on A.K. Deer as well with, Jaden Harmon, the linebacker who decommitted from Alabama and flipped to Tennessee on Sunday. I'm seeing a couple of messages. Joe, should we be concerned? I think no. I think this is just the way that recruiting works. Sometimes Tennessee, other brands are going to say, hey, what do they offer you? Here you go. Here's a little more. And that's the way that works, especially when you look at Alabama's linebacker class with Luke Metz, Duke Johnson, and Abdul Sanders are still committed to Alabama as off-ball linebackers. So I'll throw those two guys at you. A.K. Deer committing today, 5-star running back, and Alabama losing Jaden Harmon over the weekend.
Yeah, I think A.K. Deer is going to come to Alabama. That should be coming this afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
So
2 or 3 o'clock.
No later than late afternoon. Yeah, that's when that should be coming down. And I think that's what's going to happen, especially if you're already decommitted from Ole Miss. And as to the Tennessee situation, the fans are going to lose their minds over that, obviously, because of who it is. And Tennessee does have that new infusion of financials from the newly signed Pilot sponsorship, which is another part of this, change in new age of college football with these, sponsorships, the on-field sponsorships, jersey sponsorships, maybe in the future. I guess baseball broke the dam on that. But the NBA really did. But, for such a long time, these leagues and teams weren't doing it. And then, it seems like past half decade or so, it's just, but not to get off that tangent. No, I don't think that this is, the end of the world in any respect. I do think that, and you can't win them all. That's recruiting. You can't win them all. It's that simple. And it is a good get for Tennessee.
Yeah, it is.
Not to diminish what, that kind of commitment for, on the other side of things. But also, again, you mentioned this class is still just so loaded, so strong that, I don't think it's the end of the world.
Well, we're going to get out of here for the day. We got to go talk to Kane Womack and the Alabama defensive coaches and players. We're so excited to do that. We thank you guys for joining us on the program today. I really, really thank Will Miller for joining us. You guys go follow Will Miller at RealWB on the Twitter machine. You can follow me at Joe Gaither 6 on whatever your favorite social media machine is. But make sure you subscribe to the BamaCentral YouTube channel. That's my favorite place to post, and that's the place you can find all kinds of behind-the-scenes access. That's where you'll see our practice videos from today and any other day right there on the BamaCentral YouTube channel. We want to thank Derek Daniel once again for sponsoring the program. Call him today at 205-758-3391 for all your insurance needs. Derek Daniel, State Farm, right there in Northport, a mile off McFarland. He will get your home, life, auto insurance needs taken care of. You've got your kid moving into Tuscaloosa this week. You've got to have renter's insurance. So make sure you get your renter's insurance, your trailer, your boat, get you an umbrella policy. He can take care of everything you need at State Farm. Derek Daniel, State Farm. Call him at 205-758-3391. That's going to do it for the Joe Gaither Show today on a Tuesday. We'll be back to talk to you again tomorrow right here on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com.
Thanks for joining us on today's edition of the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral. Keep up with Joe on all his social media pages at Joe Gaither 6. Subscribe, rate, and review the show on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and be sure to read us daily at BamaCentral.com.